Space Coconut.
Okay, so I don't know how this is going to go. I don't have this planned or scripted or anything, but we're going to talk about all of the different Moris today. I'm going to do my best to mark how long each Mori is and then give just my general opinion on each one. This isn't a ranking per se, but I mean, some Moris are shorter than others, some look better than others, and some need to be redone. If you like seeing videos like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It really helps the channel and lets me know what kind of videos you guys like to watch the most. So first, let's talk about the Trapper. The Trapper's Mori is one of the first of the original three killers when the game was first released. It has not aged well. There have been many calls for this Mori, along with the Wraiths, to see an update with their, the new techniques that they have for making Moris and things. There have also been calls for possibly selling new Moris in the shop. So the possibility of getting a new Mori is, there, but I feel like this is a quality of life thing that isn't going to see the light of day anytime soon. For now, the Trapper's Mori is probably going to stay like this for the foreseeable future. I honestly don't think the Trapper's going to get a new Mori, ever. But hopefully I'm wrong. Next is the Wraith. The Wraith's Mori is basically in the same place that the Trapper's was. As of right now, it takes the same amount of time, but it's basically just the Wraith spanking a survivor. It's funny more than, awesome or cool. It's whatever. Like the Trapper's Mori, this one is in dire need of an update. Whether that happens, I guess we'll see. Out of the three original killers, Hillbilly's was the coolest Mori out of all of them, being cut to shreds by a chainsaw. Classic horror movie trope. For its time and for now, it is okay. The only issue I personally have with it would be like the audio effects, but I mean, what are you gonna do? I'd like to see Hillbilly updated with a Mori that brings him out into third-person view like some of the newer killers we've gotten. Would be a nice change. It would be interesting. Make it more cinematic. But for the most part, his Mori is still good. It's almost 2 seconds longer than the first two, though. The Nurse was Dead by Daylight's first DLC character. Ever since her inception, she's been the single most powerful killer in the game. And as such, the nature of her Mori was drastically different than those of her counterparts. In fitting in with her story, she uses her bare hands to accomplish this task. At the time, it was also Dead by Daylight's longest Mori at 13.5 seconds. The intimate nature of strangulation and the soft caress at the end are worth the extra time, I think. However, the only adjustment I think should be made here would be to add the bone crack, the same way that the clown does, at the time where the nurse gives a sharp jerk to the survivor's neck, very obviously breaking it. That would be the only change I would like to see here. The Shape was Dead by Daylight's first classic horror character. As such, his Mori is pretty iconic. albeit very simple. There is a bit of satisfaction to be had in staring at the eyes of the person who may have been giving you a little bit of trouble during the match, and you finally get them down and you find a place to place your knife. As a side note, his achievement to Mori all survivors with his add-ons comes at a disadvantage against survivors who run into lockers. However, this opens up the opportunity to solve the problem in a very iconic way. Imagine you have your tombstone, it's all fired up, and you have the last survivor, and they jump into a locker. You open the locker, pull them out, and this happens. The Hag's Mori was the first to go into a third-person perspective for the killer's side of the Mori. And to this day, the Hag's Mori is considered to be one of the best in Dead by Daylight, and I can't disagree with that. There are, however, several Moris that, depending on your mood, depending on your taste, depending on what you're grading it on, the violent and animalistic nature in which she attacks the survivors falls straight in line with the story that she was presented with. I suppose, staying within the storyline, staying within the lore that the Hag came from, her Mori is very well suited to her character. At 13.5 seconds, it ties the nurses for the longest Mori in the game at the time of its release. I don't have any footage of it, but the Doctor's Mori, from the survivor's perspective, is actually one that kind of bothers me a lot. You just see the survivor kind of contorting and all of that stuff, being just brutally electrocuted, and I don't know, something about that is really, really disturbing to me. So, I mean, in that way, it's number one, in my opinion. It's the only one that makes me feel like that, to an extent. I really don't have any complaints about the Doctor's Mori. The idea is pretty well done. The survivors react pretty well, and then turning them over and then seeing their sizzling faces, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, there's not too much else to say about this one. Whoa! Okay, so the Huntresses. This one is very cool. It's very brutal, but it bothers me that she goes for the head first and then the body. I feel like it should be the body first and then she finishes on the head. That's just my opinion. However, I do really like how they have the survivor grasping at the axe, just weakly. That's pretty awful. It's a pretty awful image, but I mean, it's really, really well done. The order of the hits is the only thing that bothers me. However, has anyone else been really annoyed by how she breaks pallets with her foot, but she has this perfectly good breaking, that she uses her axe perfectly to break a pallet, but they didn't use that animation for her to break a pallet. Does that bother anybody else? It sure as heck bothers me. The Mori for Leatherface is absolutely amazing. It is unfortunate that it's not in third person. The view from the survivor side is much better. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it that way. I do also think that this is probably the Mori they would have used for Hillbilly if they had more time. It was probably much easier for them to have the chainsaw go through them while they're still on the ground, rather than having this full on the knees animation that's required to have this animation with the with Leatherface. It is kind of too bad that the audio for it works the way it does. I mean, I know it's not supposed to be real or anything, but once that chainsaw hits the middle of his chest, he should probably stop making noise. But I mean, that's just me being nitpicky. I really like this Mori, but I wish it was in third person. Freddy was the second licensed character to be put into Dead by Daylight. Freddy's fame is probably only contested by that of Jason. Having Freddy in Dead by Daylight was a very big deal. Unfortunately, with all of the repertoire of Freddy's kills, this is the one that we got. I personally think that they could have done better. I think that there might have been a more iconic scene we could have used for this. Maybe Freddy completely disappears and the survivor starts flying around the area, slamming into walls and things, and then, broken on the floor. That would have been the scene that I would have chosen for this, but oh well. I mean, the one we have is good too, I guess. At 7.3 seconds, the pig's Mori isn't that exciting. However, in the middle of a match, being short and sweet is probably in the pig's best interests. Just like the pig herself. Aww. When he was released, the clown's Mori took first place for the longest Mori in the game. For 14 seconds, the brutality of the Mori isn't that bad. An interesting note, though, is that the clown has two versions of this Mori. He'll either cut off the pinky, or he'll cut off the index finger. I always thought that it would have been interesting if there was a random thing, or each survivor had a different finger taken off. But I suppose a variation of two is still more than enough for a simple Mori. Coming in at 11 seconds, the Spirit's Mori was very theatrical, in my opinion. You would have thought that it was almost taken directly from an old Japanese horror film. Out of all of the Moris, I almost feel like the Spirit's Mori is the one that conveys true, raw emotion. And you can just see how much rage she has, which makes this one of my favorite Moris. For the most part, I like the Legion's Mori. I like how the camera moves. The camera's very dynamic in this. They started playing with that with the Spirit's Mori, which I thought was really interesting. I really like how the survivor kind of fights back against the Legion in this case. Although it would have been interesting if each individual member of the Legion had a different Mori. But I'm not sure how many variations of stabbity stab we can have before it gets really old. I personally feel like the Plague's Mori was a missed opportunity. There were a lot of things that they could have done with like an ancient sacrifice or a ritualistic thing. I don't know. I think it's kind of unfortunate that the survivor gets puked on and then smacked twice, and this is the Mori. I mean, you've been puking on them the entire match and you've been hitting them the entire match and they didn't die. Why this Mori? You know? I think as a priestess, it could have been interesting for her to actually summon the entity on the survivor in that moment in the MORI, or something to do with the smoke from her urn or something. But I mean, picking them up, maybe strangling them with the chain, that would have been even, would have been a variation on the nurse, but it would have been interesting. But I don't know, the puking on the face, I feel like stylistically this one was a missed opportunity. While the main death part of the ghost's MORI is pretty uninteresting, how he finishes is the best part of the MORI. There isn't any other killer that has this much humor and chances for photo ops as there are with the ghost's MORI. He uses a camera instead of a cell phone, and I have a feeling that that's mainly due to licensing issues, since Dead by Daylight has the license for the mask of the ghost and not exactly the license to the movies, and cell phones were a very big part of the movies, so I think that's why they swapped out the camera for the phone, although definitely the phone would have been much more entertaining. And finally, our most recent addition, the Demogorgon's MORI is very cool. Because of a lot of laws in different countries and stuff, we couldn't get the MORI we all wish we did. I think we all agree that, the head still being attached is kind of unfortunate. But it is unfortunate that it's kind of a copy of the hag. I mean, let's be honest, the Demogorgon stabs the survivor with his right hand first thing, and then attacks their head. And the hag's MORI, she attacks their head and then stabs them with her hand. So I mean, I guess that's kind of another reason why the Demogorgon and the hag can get along and play nice. But yeah, the Demogorgon's MORI is cool, but the hag's is still better. So that's all of them. And in the end, the pig's MORI is the shortest at 7.5 seconds, and the clown's is the longest at 14 seconds. The hag and the nurse are only behind him by about 1/10 of a second, so it's so close that all three of them are basically the longest in the game. But the clown is literally the longest MORI in the game. I do really hope that the Trapper and the Wraith get something new, maybe some kind of rework in the MORI department, but I have a feeling that if the devs decided to spend time redoing their MORIs, we would probably see multiple MORIs for other killers, and we would probably see them in the shop. So let's be careful what we wish for, shall we? As for my personal favorites, of course, I do really like the hags, the spirits, Leatherfaces, and the Huntresses. All of them are very stylistically interesting, and it's more than just, slashing or stabbing a survivor. The hag goes for the throat. It's absolutely amazing. She rips them apart, and I don't know how you can not enjoy that. The spirits is very cool because of the interaction that she has, and they actually incorporate some of her phasing into her MORI. She vanishes and appears. Although I think it would have been more interesting or cooler if she had phased to different positions around the body as she was slashing it. Maybe change the camera as she did so. For one swing she's in front, for one swing she's behind, for one swing she's on the side, and then she just hits them at each point, kind of like she was 3 different spirits hitting her. That would have been kind of cool, especially because they took the time to animate her face. She has basically 3 expressions: rage, sad, and happy, right? So wouldn't it be interesting to see 3 spirits go at this survivor, each with a different expression? I think that would be kind of interesting. One slash is happy about it, one slash is angry and ragey about it, and the other is sad for what she's done and become. There's a lot that could have gone there, so I'm a little sad about that. Leatherface's is cool just because of how they utilize the chainsaw in this, and you can just see the survivor kind of how a chainsaw through the chest kind of affects them, and it's kind of awful that I'm thinking that, but it looks great. And then the Huntresses, although the order I think should be different, it's very cool that she uses her axe that way. I just wish that she used it that way on the pallets. The rest of the Moris are mostly forgettable. The ghosts is more interesting because of the camera and the end of it, but overall he just stabs them like the Legion, like Wraith, Freddy, Trapper. You get my point. It's kind of boring, except for the end. But there's my personal tier list, and yeah, let me know what you guys think about this video. It was a lot of fun to make, and I had to suffer through a bit of salt to do so, so yeah, like the video, because I went through a lot. Let me know which Killer's Mori is your favorite and why. I'm kind of interested in hearing about that. I'll go ahead and update this video whenever we get a new killer. I think it'll be a nice little project to work on, and I can add it to the list. And then we can see, how we can just see how things go, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying. I am very tired. I'm going to finish this, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do next. So, if you guys have any suggestions for what kind of video you'd like to see next, leave it in the comments. We'll see what we can cook up until then. In the meantime, I'll see you in the fog.
Oh! No! Adanika dingia asapume.